Our next speaker is the Regional President and Managing Director of Infineon Technologies, Asia Pacific Private Limited. Also a very important guy for the industry here in Singapore and also internationally. Mr. Andrew Chong is here with us today, and he will be giving us a speech on towards energy efficiency and the role of Infineon Technologies in Singapore. We welcome him, Mr. Andrew Chong. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. Also thank you to SSIA for the opportunity to speak here. Thanks, Ulf. I was highly enlightened by the words of Mr. Pistorio, not only the philosophical side, but I think at this juncture in the market, what is also something all of us would hope for is that the prediction that the downturn would be a short and relatively shallow one is certainly something that we all want to believe in and hope to believe in and hope that it will come about. So I won't, on the other hand, try to start another debate on this semiconductor cycle. I rather look at what I believe Infineon as a more than more company, looking at a trend, a long-term trend on energy efficiency, with a few words, of course, on the role that we play in Singapore for this. The drivers, I think most people know this. World population has doubled in the last 50 years. But more importantly, the world's gross domestic product, the gross world product, has grown even more. All of this economic activity basically consumes energy. I will also show later, if we did not already have the focus on energy efficiency, how much energy we would be consuming. And so with the actions already in place, how much we have been able to achieve in getting productivity, as it were, out of the energy that we consume. Indeed, if it wasn't for that, we would be in even more trouble than we are now as far as sustainability is concerned. The demand for energy during this incredible increase in gross world product has only quadrupled 3.5 times. This is a massive indication on the efficiency and indeed the necessary efficiency in the use of energy in order for society to continue to develop. If nothing had been done, so this is a study, if nothing had been done and we had allowed the natural progression of the use of electricity, we would today be consuming 50% more energy than we are already. This trend is, while it's good, is clearly something with the development of technology that we have to continue to take advantage of. The good news, and I of course say it's good news because we are a semiconductor supplier, is that most of this energy is actually consumed in the form of electricity. If it was consumed in the form of coal itself directly, there's nothing that the semiconductor industry can do. But because a substantial amount of this electricity is consumed, of energy is consumed as electricity, what we have is the opportunity as an industry to manipulate the efficiency of the delivery and consumption. This is again another study on the efficiency of the use of electricity. If we do nothing, basically from now onwards, 2008, we would be consuming the blue line case. With the activities already in place, we believe red line case is what will happen for energy consumption. What we're saying here, especially from the industry, is that if we do all the right things, there is much more efficiency to be derived from our use of energy, and especially electricity, for the creation of our goods and services. Actually, indeed, my term use is already wrong. Most of the energy is not even consumed, it's actually lost. If you have a look, one example of the PC, a 60-watt processor loses 13 watts in its power management in the DC supply. It loses another 13 watts in the power supply in the conversion from AC to DC. Within the transmission and distribution, even with the bulk efficiency that you have, there is a loss of another 4 watts. And then, of course, the very, very inefficient conversion from fossil fuel to electricity, there is a very substantial loss. So in order to power a 60-watt processor, it takes the generation of 220 watts of electricity. So if you look at that, we should get greedy. We should get greedy for the efficiencies that we can derive out of this. Even with the known technology now, what we can already do is to reduce some of these losses quite considerably. Looking again at the power management, working backwards from the consumption of the processor, we can reduce this to 7 watts. The AC, DC, the power supply area can also be reduced by 50%. And the transmission and distribution area, even though it's only a 1 watt topic, you of course scale this up by the amount of electricity that we move around. And indeed, as the economies in India and China develop with both geography and size, this movement of power becomes even greater. In addition, green generation of electricity, direct generation of electricity, especially under the best possible electronics use, can actually also reduce the consumption, or rather the losses in the generation portion as well. So basically, if you look at the whole supply chain, from the generation, distribution to consumption, there is still, with known technology, a considerable amount of savings that we can derive already, and I have no doubt that with the continued innovation that we will continue to be able to squeeze out more, because if you look at that number, from 60 watts back to the generation necessary, you can imagine what is the theoretical possible. Therefore, especially with electricity consumption, energy efficiency is the key, and what Infineon believes to be a megatrend, a trend that will supplant the cycles, the inevitable cycles of the semiconductor industry, because basically society needs this in order for us to continue to grow as human race, but also to maintain our level, our living standard. The same slide again. I won't go through all of this because with just a half an hour, I think it will be too much. Infineon basically participates with our semiconductor and electronics in all 3 parts of the energy chain, the electricity energy chain. Particularly in Singapore, most of our activities are centered around the energy consumption portion. So having a look at the consumption, most of the electricity consumption in the world, consumer consumption, is actually in motors. Let's not argue the numbers. I may have it wrong, 10, 20%, but it is in motors. And fortunately, if you look into this, this is the one area as well where we can derive great amount of savings. 25 to 40% additional efficiency with known technologies already. This is, of course, on the other hand, a very sad statement about how inefficient it is at the moment that you are able to derive this much. I give, one example alone, braking energy recovery, but you can think of many. Inverterized air conditioning, basically inverterization of all the drives that we use. And there are really, I think, 500 million installed motors in the world above a certain size. We're not even talking about the really small ones. In this area, in Singapore, Infineon does have quite a bit of R&D in our design center. We work very closely also with the universities in order to design smarter algorithms, in order to develop reference solutions in order to sell this. The thing about energy efficiency is that you have to bring all our customers and the industry up to date, basically, on the ROI that they can achieve if they were to make such efficiencies. The other area, lighting. Again, a very surprisingly big, at least when I very first saw this figure, surprisingly big consumption of electricity. Again, with a very high degree of savings possible. This is, of course, with the fluorescent lights, already some savings are made, but with the LED topics, which again, Infineon in Singapore, we have the design center for some of the key components here, as well as the development of the applications. As it is a new application, it is once more necessary to show the industries what is capable and what the savings are, and of course to enable the adaptation of this in industry. Here are, of course, the numbers. It is a saving not only in consumption per lumen, but it is also a saving in terms of not having to replace and dispose of the material in this particular application. Information and communication. This is, you can already immediately tell, a slightly more matured industry. A lot of effort has already been put in for efficiency in the power management of PCs, as well as the power supplies for PCs. However, greater than 1% means still that you can halve the losses, right? If you have at the moment 98% efficiency and you can achieve 99% efficiency, literally you are halving losses. And these are again big consumers of electricity in our daily lives. In Singapore, we also have the application and product design in this area, where, not with this particular example, but where for PC power, for Silverbox, we are able to achieve platinum level efficiencies of greater than 80%. In this region, we focus a lot of our activities in the application intellectual property. We believe in two things. One is the use of the technology that Infineon has in this area. There is no point having it if you can't derive benefit out of it. And secondly, what Junwoon was saying, I do believe there are possibilities in the future that from the capability of semiconductor, we can derive the system requirements. It is obviously a discussion. It is a circular discussion sometimes, unfortunately. But it means that we have to work with the users of such technology to educate them on the capability that semiconductor has to get such efficiencies. Therefore, overall, what we do in the design centers in Singapore matches a lot of the test bidding activities that are done in Singapore. We are, let me point out, not in all of these activities as a company. However, if you look at the match on the energy efficiency topic, I'm very encouraged that we have the activities in the right places. I would say it is a challenge for Infineon to be more involved, which I'm sure Junwoon would agree, in a lot of these activities. So summarizing, Infineon, as a company as a whole now, globally, we are a key enabler of the sustainable society. We're in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, where we have a net positive reduction of CO2, mainly, of course, due to the industry that we're in enabling efficiencies in the greater market. And here in Singapore, we focus very, very much not only on the IC design, but also on the application development and as I said, as a loop back to the definition of what will be required in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. Again, we would like to open the floor for questions. It has been a very interesting topic. It's amazing amount of work is going on in Singapore, especially on this field. Okay.
I don't know what the panel discussion is about later on, but perhaps you could also ask them then.
Yeah, exactly. So the panel discussion later will be based on the questionnaires. So we can also go through that later again. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Andrew, thank you very much. I would like to call upon Mr. I would like to call upon Mr. Jen as one of our board of advisors of SSIA, MD of Micron Semiconductor, to present a token of appreciation to Andrew. Thank you. Thank you very much.